Okay, Richard Marles. Normally we have a debate between him and Kelly O'Dwyer right now. Richard Marles is on holiday. Kelly O'Dwyer is in Dubai. Kelly, what are you doing there?
Hi, Tom. I've been invited by the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, along with a number of my other colleagues, Labor, National and Liberal, to be his guests, to actually have a look at what they're doing in Abu Dhabi when it comes to defence cooperation at the military bases, Al Minhad, also looking at the oil companies and what they're doing there, and having a bit of a discussion about foreign investment and talking about their sovereign wealth funds as well.
Oh, well, that's interesting. And here we are, just talking on the radio and so forth. Hey, now, your friend and colleague Joe Hockey gave a rather disturbing speech just hours ago in Washington. He spoke about possible increases in the pension age, more means testing, co-payments for medical services. Is this all coming up in the budget, do you think?
Well, look, I think Joe gave a really terrific speech in Washington just recently.
Yeah, but you have to say that.
No, I actually really do think it was a terrific speech. I mean, he was outlining for the Australian people what we face in the future if we do nothing today.
So what do we face?
Well, in the sense that if we make no changes today to the budget, and if we continue on Labor's path, we're going to have more than $667 billion in debt. You know, that is not sustainable. It's not sustainable to continue to deliver deficits year after year after year. And in the forward estimates, Labor left us $123 billion worth of debt. Now, we also know we have an ageing population. There's nothing new in what Joe Hockey said there. This is something that Peter Costello himself outlined when he brought down the very first intergenerational report. But what Joe Hockey is saying as Treasurer is that if we want to make sure that we have a safety net for those who are in need, if we want to make sure that we're going to adequately provide for people who do need a pension, then we do need to talk about exactly what people are prepared to pay. And he talked about the fact that we're going to be spending over, or just under actually, $100 billion more if we continue along the same path on the current health and pension scheme.
Okay, but Kelly, I mean, I understand where we're heading if we don't change things, but I guess what everybody, the $64 million question, or possibly the answer is, what are we going to change? I mean, is it pensions? I've had several emails, but I've had a lot of emails on this subject, and a lot say, shouldn't we do something about younger dole bludgers? And a couple of people have said, why don't we just cancel all foreign aid? I mean, are things other than the pension and the healthcare costs being looked at here?
Well, a budget, you look at everything, absolutely everything, and nobody sort of rules anything in or out before a budget is handed down, and Joe Hockey's going to be no different in that regard. So there is, of course, a lot of speculation. But what Joe is doing in outlining the speech that he gave in Washington just before was to say, well, here's what we're going to have to pay for as a country. Now, we just need to be very aware of how we're going to go about doing that, and we need to have a conversation about what our priorities are as a government. Now, clearly our priorities are to make sure that people who have worked hard across their lives, who have paid their taxes, do not find themselves in a destitute situation in their old age. Clearly, we want to make sure we have an adequate pension system for those people. Clearly, we want to make sure we have an adequate safety net. The question is, though, who should be eligible for that? And I suppose it's simply asking that question and asking the Australian people to think about that question.
Okay, so I mean, at the moment there is some means testing of pensions, but it cuts in at quite high levels. So what you're saying is that quite possibly the level of means testing will be looked at. Now, what about the pension age? The previous Treasurer, Wayne Swan, lifted or will be lifted over a few years from 65 to 67. Is there a conversation going on to possibly lift it further, maybe to 69 or even 70?
Well, look, you know, there's quite a lot of discussion about this particular question. 67 seems about right to us. However, there are some people who want to work beyond that age, and they don't want to be penalised for working, whether it's in a part-time capacity or it may even be in a full-time capacity if they actually want to be able to do that. So, you know, we have to look at how our system interacts, how our tax system interacts, and, you know, whether or not people get the benefit of their hard work, you know, if they choose to work hard even beyond those years.
Okay, because you talk about having a conversation, but I mean, is it taking place money inside the cabinet or inside the party room, or would there be an actual... I mean, would Joe Hockey come and talk to me about it, for example, before the budget, or will this just all be unveiled on budget night?
Well, I think the very fact that Joe has given the speech that he has given, it's a national conversation. It's something that everybody is entitled to participate in. I mean, it's not government by secrecy. We have been tasked with a job to do to clean up the budget position, and we have to be very real with the Australian people about exactly what that requires us to do, and we have to be very clear about the problems that we face going forward. And that's why we're focused on this issue, and Joe has been very honest about it.
Okay, final question, the issue of medical co-payments. I've spoken to Terry Barnes, former advisor to Tony Abbott, a couple of times on this. He's convinced that there will be co-payments for both GP visits and possibly some visits to the emergency department. Are they on the agenda?
Well, as I said to you, Tom, we don't rule things in, we don't rule things out before a budget. There's been quite a discussion about this. Healthcare costs are escalating. The federal Commonwealth spends now more than 83% more on hospitals than we did 10 years ago, and over the next 4 years it's going to go up by another 50% on top of that. Clearly we have an issue with our health spend. Now, whether this is going to be part of that solution, I'll leave it to Joe Hockey to make the budget announcements, as he will rightly do on budget night. Nicely handballed.
Kelly O'Dwyer, enjoy your time in Dubai, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Terrific, Tom. Great to be with you and your listeners.
Kelly O'Dwyer there. It's 16 to 5.